Greetings, fellow Whovians. Or perhaps you're not quite there yet. Maybe you're just a casual fan, just started watching the series with this new reboot. Because by my count, this would be season 1, episode 2. But that's my own count. People can argue with it. I don't care. Anyway, episode 2, Devil's Chord, written by Russell T. Davis. And yes, I said Davis this time. I'm well aware. Previous review, I said Davies, because that is the very American way to pronounce his last name, because of how it's spelled. Very just dialect thing. I've only always seen it in print for a long time, and it was only the last 2 or 3 years I actually heard it in interviews and other videos, and I'm like, oh, it's Davis, because he's Welsh. That's not just a British American difference in English. This is a Welsh thing. So, yeah. It's Davis. That's why we just do RTD for short. It's easier. Can't really screw up initials. Anyway, so far of this era, which I know everyone's going to call it the Disney era, unfortunately. I like to think of it as like the Davis 2.0 era, but whatever. It's still a reboot of the show that reboots itself already. But it's a bigger boot, so to speak. Anyway, I guess before I start on the episode, you can see how I'm dressed, and I mean, obviously the set is the set, and you saw the thumbnail. Luckily for me, I had a prop sitting around. That's a left-handed guitar. I'm right-handed, so I can't even use it. And if I could, I can't play it because I'm terrible with music, but hey, you know. I also, since I had taken down the hockey calendar, it's usually right there, for a thumbnail earlier, I was like, oh, I know the Beatles are in this episode, so I throw over my Lennon poster picture behind me, so made sense. I got some props just for the episode, including my wardrobe, which I thought this jacket felt very 70s. Between this and another shirt I had, so yeah. I know it does not match the hat. That's the whole point. Outfits are kind of ridiculous, which feels very appropriate when talking about Doctor Who. What can you do? Anyway, let's get to it. So the cold open of the episode, we get a return to the Maestro, classic Doctor Who villain. Much like with the Toymaker in the 60th anniversary, which, you know, I'm pretty familiar with Classic Who. I think the Toymaker was a one-off episode. And I think with the Maestro, there's no the. But anyway, I think there's only one episode with that as well. I didn't see either one of them. I've seen a lot of Classic Who. I've seen big chunks of every Doctor's era. But obviously I haven't seen everything because it's just a lot of stuff. Even for a hardcore fan like me, it's a lot to go through. And there's a lot of lost episodes that are being restored, and that's the whole thing. Anyway, I'm really glad that before the Toymaker episode dropped, the Doctor Who YouTube channel released like a good 10-minute clip of the first Doctor and the Toymaker, or as he was called back then, the Celestial Toymaker. They dropped that part. But I think there's reasons for it. We get into that in this episode, actually. Because this episode does dive more into gives more hints at the bigger plot. Although, it doesn't really tell us much, is that there is a bigger plot, which we all already knew. So, I'm good to go back. The Doctor Who YouTube channel did post up a 10-minute clip between First Doctor and Toymaker that I happened to see right before I saw that episode when it aired. So I'm glad I saw it. I know they include a little bit of it in a flashback in that episode, but seeing the full context of it really helped give a sense of the history between the two characters, despite that one meeting. I think it's implied they've already known each other even then. It's definitely obviously implied in the modern day episode. Same with Maestro. I'm not sure on this one, because I never saw that episode, or if it was a couple episodes from whatever era it was in. I know I didn't do any research before I recorded this video. This is literally basically me having watched it, arranged the set, found some wardrobe, and recording. Obviously, I took some notes, so that helps. But helps me stay on track and a little more tighter focus, which helps, because I do tend to drift a lot. Like that. What was I talking about anyway? Oh, yes, the Maestro. Yeah, classic Who villain as far as I know. Never saw the episodes. And the name throws me off because in my mind it was like, much like Celestial Toymaker, I was somewhat sure that that villain was called the Music Meister, but that could be from something completely else. It's just in my brain. But anyway, we have Maestro now, which, as they say in that cold open, like one of their last lines is, I am music. which gives us a hint because we already kind of know from setup previously with this new era of stuff with Davies, what he's this bigger overall plot he's setting up storyline for probably his entire run. I don't think it's going to be just a seasonal thing. I think it's going to be his run of the show is going to be this overarching plot line of a mystery character, maybe. We'll get into that. But yeah, the other really cool thing with that cold open is it ends with piano notes that start the classic Doctor Who theme. So the beginning introductory credits, the first part of it is played on piano. Very awesome. Then it transitions into the current theme, but it goes from just piano only opening bit into it was really, really awesome. I really love that. It's little things like that about episodes that really get me. I love them. Anyway, yeah, the episode setup is sort of, again with Ruby, it's like the classic Doctor Who question, anywhere in time and space, where you want to start, it can take you anywhere where you want to go. That classic Doctor Who question. And Ruby goes with the Beatles. It's one of their first early recordings. And there's a line in there I wrote down from the Doctor because I thought it's very funny if you know other pop culture stuff. It says, the Beatles, why have I never done that before? Which is true, despite the 60 years of history Doctor Who has. Well, the Beatles actually they were just starting, it's actually kind of parallel, them starting the show. But anyway, I believe there's been references to the Beatles at points, but they've never fully done an episode featuring them in any way. Why I thought that was really funny is because Legends of Tomorrow, a show that's it's no longer around, part of the CW, Greg Berlanti's Arrowverse or Flare, that series of shows. Legends of Tomorrow would not exist without Doctor Who. It's a show very strongly inspired by Doctor Who, so much they cast Arthur Darvill in the first season to play a character that's pretty much a DC Comics version of the Doctor. But yes, later in that series, in their 5th season or something, they do an episode heavily featuring the Beatles. So yeah, I thought personally that was very funny that a show that wouldn't exist without Doctor Who did an episode that Doctor Who would eventually also do their own version of, kind of. They're very different, because this is less even about the Beatles. Neither was Legends of Tomorrow. It was just, again, a plot device. Although there is some really great stuff in here with the Beatles in particular. One scene in particular that I really, really liked. I didn't write down any quotes from it, because it's kind of a long thing. But there's a scene with the Doctor and Ruby, where they have one-on-ones with Lennon and McCartney. And both of them, it cuts back and forth, but there's definitely a point where McCartney gives a little kind of mini monologue about creating music. And it's very tough. If you're an artist of any kind, a creative type, it's pretty moving stuff. Definitely got to me a little bit. Even though music is not one of my skills at all. I can do a lot of artistic things. Music and drawing / graphic design. Not my strengths. Everything else I'm pretty alright with. That, not so much. So. But either way, you can still translate the creative process is the same somewhat, no matter what your medium is to express yourself. So I feel like that speech that McCartney gives about music to Ruby is a very great moment in the episode. One of the many highlights. This is a really strong episode overall, honestly. At a certain point in our kind of early confrontation between the Doctor and Maestro, we see the Doctor use a new feature of the sonic screwdriver we have yet to see, where he kind of basically puts everything on mute and silences. I would imagine it's like a bubble or a cone of silence just in the general area he turns on. Very cool, very overpowered, very useful in the current situation he's in, which Maestro manages to break it up with a tuning fork and water. I don't know why that works, but it does. And I have no problem with that being a really overpowered feature on the Sonic right now, because look at who the Doctor's been up against and is going up against. We're dealing with celestial gods essentially in the Doctor Who universe with Toymaker and now the Maestro. Because yes, it's after that scene with Doctor and Ruby, they do get into talking about some very interesting things. The first one I noted was the Doctor references his most recent battle with the Toymaker and how it ripped his soul in half. And if you saw the 60th, you know exactly what he's talking about with the bi-generation thing. And we still have the 14th Doctor out there, played by David Tennant, and the 15th now is Ncuti Gatwa. And as he explained it, but the way he said it, the way it's written, ripped his soul in half. Makes me wonder, some point in the future, if they come back together, we don't know. Is that the only way for either one of them to regenerate? We don't. There's a lot of questions out there. But I thought that was a very interesting thing. Could be planting a seed for something way down the line, years from now. But I took note of it now because I'm like, interesting way to phrase that. I mean, yeah, because the whole bi-generation, just the inclusion of the word soul in there, I think really is interesting. So, but yeah, and then in that same scene, the Doctor also does refer to Toymaker and Maestro as gods. So, confirming the theory a lot of us have had for a while now with all this, that yes, we're dealing with a bigger overall entity that is controlling gods, so that's scary enough, but we'll get to that. But yes, confirmation that, yeah, we're going to be dealing with a lot of, like, universal forces. The Doctor referenced the Toymaker as a living game, and Maestro as the essence of music. And going back to the opening line, in the cold open, Maestro referring to themselves as, I am music. I kind of got the point of what they were doing from that line alone. It's just kind of confirmed later on in that scene, Doctor. Yeah, like halfway into this episode, I already felt like the scope and the threat level felt like a season finale almost. It was a very strong episode. For like an episode 2, did a good job of really raising the stake, keeping the stakes like high tension at all times. I think they really, like, the Doctor goes around and saves groups of people or just individuals or sometimes big groups of people or entire planets from destruction. It hits a little more closer home for, I think, for viewers when it's Earth and you're dealing with like present day timeline. It's a really great scene when the Doctor brings Ruby to the present day, June of 2024. Technically my future for when I'm recording this, but whatever. Present day. And it's just like fallout, nuclear winter, world's destroyed kind of thing. There's a great line in there too, a reference to, well, blah, 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 I faded away. I felt like there was a little nod to Back to the Future there. Again, ironic, because that's a trilogy of movies that would literally not exist without Doctor Who. Never would give the creators, the two Bobs, you are, Gail, Zemeckis, never once referenced or given credit to Doctor Who. But they really should, because if you've seen Back to the Future, you know what I'm talking about. I should really have put my Back to the Future shirt in this pile somewhere, but next time. Anyway. There's a really good reference, like as the climax is coming and the Doctor is trying to defeat the Maestro with music. There's a really great quote that I'm going to put somewhere, probably in the description, just for description. Sometimes genius is just hard work. I love that. Because, yeah, it's basically when he sits down with the guitar and Ruby's like, you have to be a musical genius, or musical genius at least, and that's when he comes back to sometimes genius is just hard work. Great line. Loved it. But yeah, as the Doctor defeats the Maestro, they again reference the oldest one, which we've heard before from the Toymaker, and I believe is who the furry, what was it called? Wow, I'd forgotten already. Such a big deal. Had a great name too. Like, it should stick in my head. It'll come back to me, I'm sure, the second I stop recording. Anyway, the big fluffy space ear thingy from the first episode of the return of Davy's era with Donna and David Tennant. The Meep, that was it. It's the Meep. The Meep also references at the end of that episode the boss. I think they're talking about the same character. And there's also, Maestro always also references that, I'm assuming the same character as the one who waits, which I believe is the same term the Toymaker used as well. So, the oldest one, I can't remember if we've heard that before, but the one who waits, I know we definitely have heard reference to that directly in an episode, part of this bigger plot line. This mystery character, I'm going to assume that we've not met them before, I don't think. We know it's not the Master, because the Toymaker already defeated and put the Master in a tooth, so. And then is dropped and lost, and Davies has already said that we're not going to see the Master anytime soon, not this season, it'll be a while. I just wanted to at least set that up so it's there for future reference. We know we're not dealing with the Master, that's not who they're talking about. Not that powerful. Someone way more powerful than apparently even celestial gods of the Hooniverse. Again, the one who waits. Better be played by Bryan Cranston. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, at the end of the episode, there's a quote that there's always a twist at the end, which turns out to be the name of a song and a whole musical number that they do for the last few minutes of the episode. It was really great. Makes sense for an episode that's so strongly tied into music. I get it. The very end, I mean, after the, again, big, just goes to a big musical number, not out of nowhere. It kind of felt natural in this. It did remind me of how in the Toymaker episode, there's also a musical number. That one kind of comes out of nowhere, but it's set to a Spice Girls song. That was also really fun. I really loved it. This one I enjoyed too. And right as they're seemingly done with that and wrapping the episode up, they do one little last bit with basically combining the piano sequence from the movie Big, the giant piano, and Abbey Road, famous album cover and the location. They combined those two things together with the tiles, and it was really cool little just nod to Big and the Beatles and Abbey Road. Again, mashing two things together that you wouldn't necessarily think about going together. So Doctor Who does best sometimes. Yep, so, and then I just have a little reference here is that they did do the little preview on, next time episode for, I believe the episode, I've already seen online, there's already been some hype for this, because there's been early press screenings for the next episode. It's called Boom. I believe written by Stephen Moffat, so this will be his first return as a writer of an episode in quite a while. I know he's very divisive. I personally have always liked Moffat's writing, so and I'm hearing some good early buzz about this one. So, hey, we'll check it out next Saturday. Expect a review Saturday afternoon. I want it to be after it airs for you Brits, because fairness, we get to see the show early for once, which feels wrong on so many levels. Anyway, we'll talk about it more later. Peace.